Have you ever felt abandoned, left out in the cold? We're going to talk about the Five of Pentacles this week and 3 ways that we can overcome this feeling of abandonment, this feeling of being left behind or left out. A lot of us experience this in our closest relationships, whether it's through a breakup, whether it's through a family member not coming through when we needed them most. The Five of Pentacles is a card of being left out in the cold. As you can see on this card, there are 2 people and they're walking through a cold, snowy blizzard. But this is the beautiful thing about the Five of Pentacles, is this stained glass window. Inside of this church, there is hope. It's almost as if there's this warm, radiating, angelic, God-like light coming through this beautiful stained glass to show us that even in the worst situations, there is always hope. Even when we're shivering in the cold in different areas of our lives, there is always hope. Sometimes I actually look at this second person, as a guide or an angel. I often look at this guy, the one with the crutches here, as the querent, us, the person that is struggling because he's looking right at us. He's looking off of this card right into our eyes, almost like he's asking for help, like, can somebody help me? And here's the irony of the card, is that the help is right behind him. I do believe that's allegorical. And sometimes, even though this is not accurate tarot, I've never heard anybody say this before, but sometimes I see this woman here as kind of like a Mother Mary sort of a figure. Kind of like an angelic presence around this man, that even if he feels like he's completely alone walking through this storm, he actually has this presence. It's almost as if this person for me today is the church itself. This person is the hope that as we're walking through this storm, we always have a guiding light with us. So let's start off today with way number 1. How do we overcome abandonment? Now, I already kind of started off with the idea that the universe is always with us. The universe steps forward when we are in these predicaments. Say you're walking through the forest, you're all alone in the woods, and you're crying out to the universe, asking for help. And then all of a sudden, it's almost as if all of those trees become alive. It's like that with the universe. It's all around us. And the universe will show up for us in the form of physical people, literally. They will send people. It's almost as if the universe breathes its life into the people around us to be like the universe love toward us. It's like I said about this Mother Mary sort of a figure next to us, the struggling person. It's almost as if the universe will send people, or is it the universe showing up as a person to help us in certain situations, or showing us signs, symbols, synchronicities? I'm going to quickly share a Five of Pentacles story from my life. This was back in 2018. I was living at home at that time. I was still living with my parents, and we had lost our house. And my parents had decided, okay, just without telling anybody, we're all going to move to Florida. At the time, I was not willing to move with them, so they decided to go without me. And I remember specifically standing in the McDonald's parking lot. This was when my brother Mitch was still alive. And I remember looking at my brother Mitch from the back of the van, like through the window, and just like waving goodbye as they were pulling away from the McDonald's parking lot, I was standing in the parking lot and I had nowhere to live at that time. I was homeless. And I felt Five of Pentacles in that moment, right? And I'm not going to get into my whole history today, but let me just say, because I'm sure somebody would think, like, isn't she like 32 years old? If this was doing a little quick math, this would have meant that she was in her mid-20s at this time. Yes, I was in my mid-20s at this time, but just very quickly, at that time, I had like the mind of a teenager because, you know, I it was kind of like a form of Stockholm syndrome where I had felt like everything in my life was that family, like my identity, my home. Like I was very sheltered. I was homeschooled. I wasn't like a regular person, according to society. So for me, think of like things like shiny, happy people. Think of shows that you've watched about people leaving cults. Okay, that's a little food for thought of kind of the vibe of my past. I'm not going to get into that today. I'm just saying, in that moment, this Five of Pentacles for me was equivalent in my mind. I'm not talking about from anybody else's perspective, and this is the same for you, and that's why I'm qualifying this, because you might feel abandoned in a certain situation that somebody else would be like, hey, dude, that's not that bad. Everybody has breakups, for example. But maybe the person messed you up so freaking bad, dude, that you're like messed up for the next however many relationships until you heal enough to finally have a good one, or you have to spend a long time alone or whatever. Somebody else might look at you and be like, dude, you know, we all have breakups, like it's normal, it's life. But for you, there was something Five of Pentacles about your situation. I'm just using that as an example. And for me, when I was watching them drive away from me, even though I was in my mid-20s, for me, it was, I was homeless. You know, I had nothing. I had no one. And so this brings me to the reason. And just know, this is the place I'm speaking from. I have had moments in my life that I felt absolutely hopeless and terrified. Like, the way this man's eyes look, it almost looks like he's just gonna give up and just go lay under a bridge. So I'm not coming on here with like a bunch of positive thinking. Here's 3 ways to get over your abandonment issues. It's like, I'm coming from a perspective of a bleeding heart. I'm coming to you as somebody who, I don't even know how I'm sitting here, to be honest with you. I really don't. Some of the things that I've gone through in my life, I don't know how I've even survived. And I'm sure some of you feel that way as well. And that's the group I'm speaking to, right? We're talking from a place of overcomers. We are overcomers. When we are left out in the cold, when we feel like we were abandoned, what happens? That is when the universe steps forward. And it's almost as if the entire world around us steps forward to our aid. I call this phenomenon silver lining plot points. You will look back on your life and you will think of certain situations that happened to you and realize those were actually the plot points that made me who I am. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go on with this episode. The very thing that made me feel like completely hopeless, abandoned, alone, afraid, ended up being the launching pad for the person you're seeing sitting here today. we start to see what happens as we're in this process of abandonment. The universe begins to step forward. And for me, that was in the form of a man that I didn't even know took me in like his own grandchild. I stayed in the top bedroom at his house. He just recently passed away. I love you, Poppy. Shout out to Poppy. He took me in like a stray cat off the street, and he took in many stray cats through his life. He adopted his children as well. He was an earth angel. He took me into his home, and on that top floor in his house, I started my ministry. And that was where I turned my pain into power. I felt abandoned by my family. I felt the exact opposite effect coming from the other direction. I then felt adopted by this man who I considered a grandfather. These silver lining plot points, something that would have been a defining moment for me where I felt abandoned, I felt alone, I felt like, I don't know even how to put it into words, just everything on this card, feeling shivering in the cold in a blizzard, homeless, alone, no money, no one really to fully understand, because I felt like a freak, that I was in my mid-20s and I was like crying about my parents leaving me. It's like people couldn't understand the sort of like upbringing that I had, that this was the equivalent of leaving like a teenager, like a 14-year-old kid in a parking lot and driving away. I want to give a beautiful example from one of Tupac's most famous writings, and it's a poem called The Rose That Grew from Concrete. Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving nature's laws wrong, it learned to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete when no one else even cared. Rest in peace, Tupac. Or maybe he's on an island somewhere, we don't know. Tupac understood what I'm talking about today. Tupac was a poet, he was a prophet. The rose that grew from concrete. You are that rose that grew from concrete, that grew through an impossible situation. A way that I was able to transmute my situation was, well, first of all, I started my ministry in Poppy's house. I started my online ministry, and I was able to quit my job. I was a CNA at the time. I was able to quit that job, and I was able to go full-time on my ministry. I had an online ministry for a few years that was starting to become very successful. And a lot of you know my story. An angel appeared to me and then told me to stop doing that and to pivot and go in a different direction. And here I sit today. This is a little bit different than what I was doing before, but is it? Is it really? The second thing that I did, and I've always done this, is I wrote many, many songs during that time. And I actually have a song that I wrote for you guys called Dripping With You that I'm going to play at the end of this episode. Let me know what you think of it. Way number 3 to overcome abandonment is to understand that in this place of quiet is where we discover ourselves. If this bad shit didn't happen, in other words, we never would have met the person we are today. Never would have met you. Never would have met me. This version of me would never have existed if I didn't go through this, because this shit birthed me. The person you're seeing here today, this birthed me. I love this song called Growing Sideways by Noah Kahan. He has this one lyric that says, I'm terrified that I might never have met me. And I don't even know if he meant it this way or not, but the way that I take it is, if I didn't go through all of this Five of Pentacles stuff, this hardship, I never would have met the person that I am today. So I took my medication and I poured my trauma out on some sad-eyed middle-aged man's overpriced new leather couch. And we argued about Jesus, finally found some middle ground. I said I'm cured. And I divvied up my anger into 30 separate parts. Keep the bat shit in my liver and the rest around my heart. I'm still angry at my parents and what their parents did to them, but it's a start. But I ignore things and I move sideways until I forget what I felt in the first place. At the end of the day, I know there are worse ways to stay alive. Cause everyone's growing and everyone's healthy. I'm terrified that I might never have met me. Oh, if my engine works perfect on empty, I guess I'll drive. I guess I'll drive. When we are in these situations, when we feel abandoned and when we feel alone, it's like every indie movie that has ever existed. It's every Sundance Film Festival winner. It's every Toronto Film Festival winner, right? Where the main character is like sitting with their back up against the wall, tears streaming down their face, and that's the moment they arrive. That's the moment the true them comes online, because Five of Pentacles, it brings out who you really are. Because it's that grit of life. It's that rose through the concrete against all odds coming out as this beautiful flower. And I'm not saying we should go looking for drama or looking for bad things to happen so that, we become these higher versions of ourselves. Don't worry. It'll happen all on its own. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm really saying, to close this episode off, and then I'm going to play my song Dripping With You. When we face this feeling of abandonment, the beautiful part about that is we actually get the chance to meet ourselves in that place. It's like in those times of feeling abandoned and feeling alone, it's like we bring through that grit that makes us who we are, that makes us the artists, the storytellers, the movie makers, right? The forerunners of new technology. Any great person that's ever lived, they have one hell of a story. Just saying. I love you guys. It's been Missy Gordon, the Metamystic here. And here is my song, Dripping With You. Lying in wait, waiting for prey, welcoming the day with a surplus of misery. 'Cause wherever you go, there you are. And no matter where you you're dripping with you. You're dripping with you. Minding my way, now you're begging to stay. It's just rhetoric and foreplay, 'cause you threw my song away. And it's rolling, rolling, rolling down the riverbank. And it's rolling, rolling, rolling down the riverbank. All the words that you drank, ones you never did say. Everything that I gave, slowly rolling away. Sunset in May, now I'm okay. Went your own way, say you're drowning in misery, 'cause wherever you go, there you are. And no matter where you run, you won't get far, 'cause you're dripping with you. You're dripping with you. Picked up my guitar, found where my things are. You hit all the good parts and convinced me of misery. I missed the moments of simple exhalation. I was always waiting for you to celebrate, and you always told me it was a hallucination, 'cause you're dripping with you. You're dripping with you. So I took off my clothes and rolled down the riverbank and collected my pieces from thousands of miles away. Now I'm dripping with me, drifting out to the sea, Poseidon beckoning me with a skeleton key. Now I'm dripping